If you do not mind, then appreciate my efforts by subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much in advance.
Putin put the Strategic Deterrence Forces on special alert in February 2022. Then the Russian military placed mines in the nuclear power units of the occupied ZNPP. In September, Putin was already openly threatening nuclear weapons. Obviously, the Russian president is pursuing a strategy of gradual, controlled escalation. This is a war of nerves that Putin hopes to win. He has 5 cards in his hand, plus a joker in his pocket. Putin started with the smallest card. The first move, in early October, a Russian nuclear military echelon set off for the front line. In appearance, this is a normal train, which cannot be distinguished from an ordinary train, so satellite reconnaissance is powerless here. But in fact, the train is a launch pad with a full-fledged control point for the launch of ballistic and tactical missiles. The advancement of a nuclear echelon to the borders of Ukraine is a nuclear attack without a nuclear explosion. According to Russian doctrine, this step is followed by an ultimatum. Putin will certainly demand an end to the Ukrainian offensive. Now the Russian troops urgently need a breather. A pause of 4 to 6 weeks will postpone the timing of the Ukrainian offensive until spring, because the autumn thaw and winter frosts will stop the advance of the troops. If the Ukrainian side rejects the ultimatum, then Putin's next move will be a demonstration of nuclear power. For example, Russia can test the latest nuclear weapons, so step number 2 is nuclear testing. To do this, the nuclear submarine Belgorod went on combat duty. The Russian submarine Belgorod is the carrier of the unmanned underwater vehicle Poseidon. It is a nuclear-powered robot-controlled deep-sea torpedo capable of carrying a charge of up to 100 megatons. In one of our videos, you can learn more about Poseidon. The Poseidon explosion will be the first underwater nuclear test in 60 years, and the first Russian nuclear test in 30 years. Poseidon's test won't trigger a nuclear response, but it could bring Russia a welcome reprieve. If Putin conducts a demonstration explosion of Poseidon at sea, then this will be an ultimatum not to Ukraine, but to the United States and Western countries. The task is to force the leadership of the countries that support Ukraine to convince Zelensky to stop the offensive and accept the loss of part of the Ukrainian territory. However, there is a nuance here. Ukrainians are fighting for survival because those who disagree with the occupation, at best, are expelled or end up in prison, and at worst, they are shot as in Bucha. Therefore, Putin will not be able to break the resistance of Ukraine with a demonstration of a nuclear charge, and the Allies will not be able to influence Zelensky. Putin will be forced to continue escalating, otherwise he will lose face. Move number 3. Using nuclear mines along the line of contact. There are similar precedents in modern history. For example, the US placed nuclear mines in Fulda Gap during the Cold War. Nuclear mining was also used along the demarcation line between communist North Korea and South Korea. The nuclear mine belt along the front line will certainly delay the advance of Ukrainian troops. Charges can be installed at points strategically important for an offensive, on highways, under bridges, in places of possible pontoon crossings. This is a fairly effective means of deterrence because a nuclear landmine has great power and at the same time does not pose a global danger. This means there will be no nuclear response. But due to the long front, Russia will have to use hundreds of nuclear mines. In frontline conditions, there is a high danger that several units will end up in random hands. Where the missing nuclear mine will explode later is impossible to predict. It may even be Red Square near the Kremlin, so this is a weak move. Putin has a big stick in his hands and a joker in his pocket. Can Russia win? Let's find out. The fourth step is a single local delivery of a nuclear strike against a specific target on Ukrainian territory. If Putin decides on such an attack, then there will be no nuclear response from the United States and NATO, because a local nuclear strike is not a global war, but a demonstration of nuclear power. So that a nuclear attack does not become a senseless destruction of the population and does not cause a retaliatory strike, the target must be a strategically important object that cannot be destroyed by conventional weapons. Such objects include Dnipropetrovsk in Zaporozhye. It is the country's largest hydroelectric power plant and has long been the largest hydroelectric power plant in Europe. Dnipropetrovsk is the most important element in the energy system of Ukraine. The power of the station is almost 1,600 megawatts. After the destruction of the dam, all major cities of the country on the left bank of the Dnieper will be left without power supply or will experience an acute shortage of electricity. Factories, metallurgical and coke chemical plants, food enterprises will stop. The destruction of the dam will destroy all bridges along the Dnieper below Dnipropetrovsk, which means that the Ukrainian army will not be able to develop an offensive to the south. The number of casualties among the population will be relatively small, and the radiation will not turn the region into a desert. The Dnipropetrovsk had already exploded in 1941 and 1943. For the first time, it took only 20 tons of explosives to blow up the dam. The explosion created a breach 575 feet long and over 60 feet high. Water instantly rushed through the gap and swept away all bridges and crossings. The level of the Dnieper downstream immediately jumped 16 to 17 feet. Then the German authorities restored the dam, but in 1943, the Dnipropetrovsk was blown up again, only by the retreating troops of the Wehrmacht. It is possible that Dnipropetrovsk will get it this time as well. For the attack, Russia can use Kh-102 strategic air-to-ground cruise missiles, which are a nuclear modification of the Kh-101 missiles. These are the scarcest and most accurate missiles in the arsenal of the Russian army. The range of X-102 reaches 3,400 miles. The launch is carried out from a Tu-160 or Tu-95 MSM strategic bomber. Russia has already used these aircraft for strikes on the territory of Ukraine with Kh-101 missiles, so the technology of a possible nuclear attack has been worked out. The Dnipropetrovsk concrete dam is almost 2,500 feet long, height up to 210 feet. The dam is in the form of an arch with a radius of 1,968 feet. It will not be difficult to hit it, because the X-102's accuracy on stationary targets is 23 feet. If the blow falls on the central part, then this will enhance the destructive effect of the water flow. The Kh-102 missile is capable of carrying a nuclear or thermonuclear charge with a yield of 250 kilotons to 1 megaton. This is hundreds of times more than required. Therefore, the Russians can use another carrier, the Caliber missile, which is less accurate, but is capable of carrying a nuclear charge with a yield of 0.4 kilotons. The radius of destruction of such a blow will not exceed 0.5 miles. The largest Ukrainian gas storage holds about 700 million CCF. The explosion will make the whole of Europe shudder. However, if the dagger misses, and such a probability is very high, then the US military response will be not only the supply of ATACMS to the Ukrainian army, but also the closing of the sky over Ukraine by NATO aircraft. The Russian army will lose the ability to attack Ukraine with missiles. Putin will not have a chance to win. The limited use of nuclear weapons does not guarantee Russia victory. After each move, the situation worsens for Putin and he loses control of the escalation. But he still has a joker in his pocket: a massive nuclear strike. True, after this move, the Russian president will not be able to celebrate victory because he is guaranteed to receive a symmetrical nuclear response. Will the Russian president decide on a massive nuclear attack? Or will he continue to scare the world with nuclear tests and localized strikes of nuclear missiles? We will closely monitor the development of the situation. Subscribe and stay with us.